Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the Heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine on ESPN Radio 1230. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we have no guests this week, so it's just you and I here today to let everybody know kind of what's going on in the world, and I guess we'll just kick this right off with the NCAA Men's Tournament because the championship game is tonight at some odd hour, like 8:09 p.m. or something like that.
Is that Central Time, right?
Yeah, that is Central Time, yeah. So, I mean, you know, by the time they hand out the trophies and all, we can go to bed at midnight. We'll be lucky if I make it that far.
I guess trying to get the West Coast viewers.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, because what is that, 5 o'clock on the West Coast?
Yeah. I mean, the women's game yesterday started at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, it was Sunday, you know. I mean, nobody had anything to do on Sunday, I suppose. But and we'll talk about the women's championship game as well. But we'll get started with this meeting tonight between Virginia and Texas Tech. And I was going through the Brown Sports Bag Bracket Challenge, and I misspoke last week when I said our winner, who is going to be Tracy Gentry, had picked Virginia to win. She had not. She picked Virginia to get to the finals and lose to Duke. But she's the only person who had Virginia in the finals. I went through a number of brackets trying to just find, people. Nobody picked Virginia to win this thing. Some people had them in the Final Four, but not many. I guess nobody had any faith in Virginia.
Well, after last year's performance,
yeah, why would they? Right?
When they went out the first game, I think people were a little hesitant to take to take them, but they have obviously they've played well, and they've been very fortunate to get to where they've been as well.
Yeah, I put out a tweet before the Elite Eight, and it basically said Duke and Virginia are either living on borrowed time or blessed. Just depending on which way you want to look at it. I mean, because Duke was living on borrowed time. I mean, they kept winning games they really should have lost, and Virginia has kept winning games that it looked like they should probably lose. And here they are. And meanwhile, though, Texas Tech actually, if you were just to look over the whole of this tournament, they may look like the best team in this tournament.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I think they've played better than anybody.
Yeah.
They have they're defensively, they're tremendous. I haven't watched a lot of Texas Tech, to be honest with you. It's not something that I've sat around and watched all year, to be honest with you.
I mean, look, they're over there somewhere in western Texas. Why would you watch
they are in the Big 12, and that's that's a big-time conference in basketball. But I've not watched much of them, to be honest with you, even in this tournament. Mm-hmm. They were not put on any of the primetime channels, to be quite honestly. And, the first time I really just sat down and watched them from the start to finish was the Michigan State game, and you talking about impressive defensively. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are really, really, really good. And I think you're right. I think of all the teams in the tournament, the team that has played the best is Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Virginia, obviously, to win 5 games to be in the finals has played well, but they've won 2 games in which they probably had less than 1% chance of winning at the end of the game, and they pulled 2 games out against Purdue and against Auburn that it's almost impossible to pull out.
And we'll just go ahead and address the controversy of the foul call just right away. But I want to point out, even before we get there, because a lot of people were blowing up, especially SEC and Auburn fans, about the foul call on the three-point shot that gave Virginia the opportunity basically to win the game at the line. But before that, Jared Harper, who had hit 18 consecutive free throws, missed one. That would have put Auburn up 3, which kind of basically then that kid would have been going to the line at best to tie the game. Mm-hmm. So then also you send a college kid to the line with his team down 2. He has 3 free throws. Hardly ever do we see anybody hit all 3 of them. They'll make 2. Even Auburn was in that situation. They'll make 2, they'll make 1. Rarely they make 3. So that's just an impressive thing that the guy pulled it off, hitting all 3 free throws.
Absolutely.
And then here's the other thing. A lot of people are like, well, officials wouldn't make that call at the end of the game. To me, what I saw was a foul.
Well, they've made it twice in the last couple of games.
Yeah.
They made the call against Tennessee.
Yep.
For Purdue on the same type of deal, except it's probably worse because he actually, and the Purdue kid, Cameron Edwards, I believe his name.
Yeah.
He stuck his leg out to get fouled.
Yeah.
This case,
he made the contact.
Yeah, in this case, Kyle Guy did not. The guy actually went into his hip on the shot.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no doubt it affected the shot. If that's part of the question sometimes in the officiating, did it affect the shot? Definitely it did.
Right.
And here was the other thing about that particular play. It looked like the defender had the play sniffed out. Like he had it guarded. Dowdy is his name. And I have no idea what happened to him at the moment where he committed the foul, because he acted like he was between deciding whether he was going to contest it or not, and then made the worst decision.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem that all these defenders have. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to a play that we know very well here, Allen County, Barron County.
Yeah.
What if you don't contest it and they make a three to beat you? You look like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you giving up a three and not contesting?
Yeah.
If you do contest and foul, what are you doing? You don't foul 3-point shooter.
Right.
So it puts the defender in I think almost in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
Where you want to be close enough and to contest, but you don't want to foul, and sometimes that puts the defender in a very difficult position.
Yeah.
And maybe the best way to play it is what Syracuse does. They zone it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to make the three, you're going to make one way, way out deep rather than chasing people off screens and doing things like that. That may be the best play.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good
Or
point.
how about the best plays don't – the game – basketball is so overcoached right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Auburn was so programmed in their mind. They had 2 fouls to give. By gosh, they had to foul twice in the last 6 seconds.
Yeah.
If not, they would have been criticized for not fouling. Well, first of all, when the Auburn kid missed the free throw with 6 seconds to go, they fouled immediately. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Not even on the dribble, they fouled immediately.
Yeah,
the second time they fouled was after that. They were Virginia was trying to get that ball down the floor. It was after the ball went off his foot. After the double dribble, they fouled again with about 1 second. Why? Mm-hmm. The best that guy was going to do is take a half court shot.
Yeah.
By fouling, enables them to take another side out, which they can actually set something up.
Mm-hmm.
20 years. I'll just say this: 15 years ago, Virginia would have lost because they would have taken a half court shot.
Yeah.
But now, if you don't foul and a team makes a three, you're the worst coach in the world. How come you're not fouling? It's like if you don't guard the inbounds player on the last second situation, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, there's also a thought that if you don't guard the inbounder, you're playing 5-on-4.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think kind of flashback 25 years now or thereabouts. I think the Duke-Kentucky game is the one that ruins the idea of not guarding the inbounder.
And I said at the time, it had nothing to do with it. The guy, Grant Hill, back then, just go back and watch the film and tell me what difference it made. The guy had to be 10 foot tall because he was 5 feet away and he threw a moon ball.
Yeah, well, I mean, Grant Hill's 6'8",
and he threw it up to the top.
Yeah.
It wasn't a direct pass.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me, you'd have to put a giant right there. The problem was on the back end where nobody guarded anybody. That was the problem.
Yeah. The guy who would have had to have guarded Grant Hill was also the guy you wanted guarding Christian Laettner.
That's exactly right.
That was a pickle.
So it is so. I just think I think the game is so overcoached where you have to foul. Well, okay. Maybe you shouldn't foul. Maybe play it out, because I was surprised Virginia wasn't calling timeout.
Yeah.
They weren't going to call timeout. It looks like to me they were playing it out, and the best they would have got was a half-court shot. But by fouling intentionally, you enabled Virginia to get a side out. Then they called timeout, and they drew up something where they got a quality shot.
I would say this, and I mean, I've never coached basketball a day in my life, but I would look at if you have 2 fouls to give, I would look at the circumstance like this.
But yeah, you should look at the circumstance, no question.
So if you've got 6 seconds left and 2 fouls to give, maybe you can commit the first foul because now you're actually giving yourself to set your defense.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one makes no sense because now they are in disarray. They're at the disadvantage. Now you don't commit the foul.
Right.
As you're pointing out, make them take the tougher shot. If somebody makes that shot, you were going to lose that game anyway.
That's right.
It wasn't meant to be, so to speak. But you're right. When they commit the second foul after he's already dribbled it off his foot, gone into the backcourt, which should have been a double dribble, and done all that stuff, it seems like the players need enough freedom, I think, to make a decision at that moment to recognize I have the advantage because this guy's nowhere near where he wants to be to take a shot. Their offense is in no kind of situation to run an offense. They're gonna have it's gonna be a desperation heat.
Yeah, this is where the talking heads on there have affected the coaching strategies in games.
Yeah,
I mean it really has. You know, if you don't foul, if you don't foul and let them get a 3-point shot off, you're wrong. Or if you got fouls to give, if you don't do it, you're wrong. It's not always. We saw that it's not always the case.
Right. You know, and that may play into, because I did think about this as I was watching the replay of Dowdy trying to close out. He closed out in such a way as if he thought to himself, I don't want to foul him.
That's right.
But at the same time,
his momentum was going into his body because he was chasing him off the screens.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, if you go back and look at how in the olden days people might defend a 3-pointer, they didn't defend coming at the shooter. They defended coming across the shooter.
Right.
So because the idea was to basically just flash in front of their vision so that you may distract them from the shot. If you have a good shooter, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you could flash in front of Larry Bird from now until the sun sets, or Steph Curry from now until the sun sets, and you're not going to affect them. They're just too good at it. Mm-hmm. But if you have a guy who's not those people, or just an absolute great outside shooter, you probably can't affect them even if you don't make any kind of contact, even if you don't get in their space. And it seemed like because of the way he came off trying to defend it, he was almost trying to defend it like he was trying to deny the ball, which then put him in a position where there was no way he could defend the actual shot.
I don't blame that kid at all. He was doing if he had kept his hands down and stayed on his feet, and the guy rose up, Kyle Guy, who's a heck of a 3-point shooter, he just made one. He scored 6 points in the last 6 seconds.
Right. Yeah, he had one from the other side.
If the kid just raises up and makes a 3, then that Auburn player would have been vilified too.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you what,
the only way it works out for him is to challenge and not foul, and the guy misses a shot.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's what he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But it's a really, really difficult spot to be in.
Well, and I tell you another thing that about that. I don't know if you saw the interview with Dowdy after the game where he talked about where somebody asked him the question about the call, and he said, the officials don't tell me how to score the ball. It's not my job to tell them, whether a call was a good call or a bad call.
Yeah.
I really thought, of all things, I thought Bruce Pearl.
He handled it well, but here's my take on that. He got a great lesson from Rick Barnes, the Tennessee coach.
Mm-hmm.
When Tennessee lost to Auburn in a very similar way, Rick Barnes was extremely classy in his postgame.
Yeah.
Said, it was a foul, it was a lot of contact, it was a foul. Auburn played great, we played great. He handled it unbelievably well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Bruce Pearl saw that.
Yeah.
And took that road, which was plus. Bruce Pearl has a lot of good karma going right now, and he hasn't had any.
Yeah, he kind of needs this high road, doesn't he?
He needs a little high road. That's exactly right.
There's been some dirt in the trail where he's been.
A lot of dirt.
Yeah.
And he did handle it well. I'll give him that.
Well, here's the thing. I expect that from a coach. I think sometimes we don't expect that from college players because,
right.
They're young men of a certain age, and we kind of expect them to be emotional.
But they act better than pros.
They do. They really do.
They really do. They act 100% better than the pros.
Yeah.
They don't have that. Maybe they don't have that confidence, or maybe they don't have that leash where they can just go out and say whatever they want to, and right, wrong, or whatever. They are much more controlled than. And the coach is the face of the program in college. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not Steph Curry or KD or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think it does set up a fascinating championship game tonight. And
if you like basketball, it is.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be the most exciting game to watch.
No.
The over-under is an all-time low. I think it's at 118.
Yeah.
Texas is the number 1 rated defensive team in the country, and I think Virginia is number 2. And Virginia plays at a snail-like pace.
Right.
So, it's probably whoever gets to 60 probably wins.
Yeah.
And I think Texas Tech is the better team. I think they play better. But I think Virginia's going to win. I just think they got karma.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer. I told you I thought Barron was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Once they beat Allen,
yeah,
that was they survived that bullet right there. And then they went on to win. Virginia has done it twice.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I think Tech is playing better, this guard for this Matt Mooney is an incredible story.
Yeah.
He started off at Air Force, where Jared Coomer is, by the way.
Yes.
Then he played 2 years at South Dakota. Then he transferred this year to Tech, and he's a heck of a player. I mean, just a heck of a player. I think Tech is better than Virginia, though I think Virginia's going to win. I just think karma just write the story. They were the only number one seed in history to lose to a 16 seed last year. In the following year, they come back and win it at surviving 2 buzzer beaters. Yeah, I think it's Virginia.
It does set up quite nicely for an epic narrative, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean Texas Tech has their own Cinderella story.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen many of those win.
Right. Yeah, they usually don't.
Butler got there, didn't win it.
Yeah,
and you see that where they get there. VCU got there a few years ago, didn't win.
Yeah,
Tech is there. Maybe they'll win, and Chris Beard will move on to UCLA or wherever.
Right. But who's still looking for a coach? I'm guessing that's what they're doing. They're sitting there waiting to see how this turns out.
Jamie Dixon, it looked like he was going to go there, but something about buyout. I keep thinking, I think it's more about Chris Beard than anything else.
I do too. Well, anyway, that game is tonight. Everybody should tune in who would like to tune in and check out that game. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
If you can stay up that late.
Yeah, if you can stay awake, it'll be a challenge for me, I must admit.
Yep.
Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
All right, we're back. John and I here to tell you a little bit about the NCAA Women's National Tournament that finished up Sunday with Baylor holding off Notre Dame 82-81. To me, the women's tournament, the women's game has gotten kind of interesting to me because we've gone from UConn just dominating it to other programs that had kind of been the runners-up every year taking over. And I don't know if some of the talent is going to other places. I mean, I'm sure that may be part of it. I think some folks are starting to stay home, stay local to their schools and that kind of thing. But also, maybe after a few years ago, 3 years ago, whenever Mississippi State beat UConn in the semifinals and other people started beating them in the regular season from time to time.
Not much.
Not much. A couple of times a year, which is, they went, 80-some-odd games in a row without losing, so that was beating them once or twice in a year is quite a bit, actually. Maybe the door just kind of opened. Other people started getting more talent in, and also they started believing maybe they could actually win, beat UConn and win a national title.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's clearly more parity.
Yeah.
I agree it's more parity. I don't think UConn's going anywhere.
Oh, no.
They've got the National Player of the Year going to them next year.
Yeah.
So they were down year. They were 34-3.
Yeah,
and
Gino's going to get fired at that rate.
And they had a 9-point lead with 6 minutes to go against Notre Dame too.
Yeah, they really should have won that game.
Yeah, but it's clearly it's changing. I thought this was the year there was more parity than I've seen in a long time. Yeah. I didn't think UConn was anywhere close to the strength they've been in the past.
Yeah,
still really good. But, I thought Louisville was better, even though they got beat by UConn in the Final Eight. I thought all year that Oregon, Mississippi State, Notre Dame, and Baylor were better than UConn.
Yeah.
So it's slightly – I think it's slightly changing, and it's good that more people has a chance to win, but UConn is still – as long as Gino is at UConn, they're going to be – you got to go through UConn if you want to win.
Yeah, and off air, you made a good point about the women's game is that you talk about the National Player of the Year is coming to UConn. Well, I mean, she'll be there at
4
least
years.
3 years and probably 4.
Yeah, I mean, they stay. I mean, there's just not the money there that women can make. And if they can make money, it's overseas.
Yeah.
So it's to their benefit to stay and to get a degree. The degree is actually worth more than sometimes their playing career, unless you're just unbelievably elite of the elite. But you'll have to spend most of your time. You know what most people don't know is that the women make their money. They play in the summer in the WNBA, but that's a short season. It's only about 30 games. They make their money in the winter playing in Russia.
Yeah,
and leagues like that, where they get about 100,000 or whatever to play. So so once you get good, if you get a good freshman in women's basketball, you're going to have her for 4 years, and you don't have that in the guys.
Yeah. And you talk about Louisville being better this year than UConn probably. I mean, you look at Asia Durr. I mean, she's like a fantastic example for them. I mean, she set a tone for the program, and I think that's the other thing that happens in the fact that you might have a player for 4 years. So you get somebody like Asia Durr, her sophomore year, junior year, maybe some other girls around are looking and saying, I wouldn't mind playing with her in college. Right. So they either stay in state or they move into state, and that bolsters the program, going forward for a couple of years after that player is gone. I mean, that's kind of, I think that Mississippi State is a prime example of that. I mean, Victoria Vivians 5 years ago came to Mississippi State. She was considered one of the best players in the country and the best player in Mississippi, and they got a new coach, and he brought a tone with them, and it all melded together. So they come back this year. They lost 2 key seniors, but they came back and they were still good this year.
Yeah, because they had that 6'7" kid.
Yeah,
too. It helped. But you're good for several years in women once you get there because you keep your players.
Yeah.
I mean, the women's Final Four was arguably better than the men's Final Four. In one sense. Now that the end of the Michigan, the end of the game with the Virginia game was obviously controversial and exciting, but the Notre Dame UConn game went right down to the end. Exciting game. The Purdue Oregon was fantastic.
Yeah,
not Purdue. Oregon and Baylor was fantastic. It went down to the very end. I mean, Oregon's point guard Sabrina, I think it's Anascu. She's a heck of a player. She's one of the best players in the country, junior. And the women's game is at the college level is really, really good, really good. I mean, Baylor won 82-81 and did not make a three.
Right. And that's one thing. The women's game is very high scoring.
It is
and
very
it's not
high.
Just wild outside shots.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's a really good outside shooting team, but Notre Dame was so big. Kalani Brown is 6'7", and Baylor, I keep saying Baylor's Kalani Brown 6'7", heck of a player. But their best player is Lauren Cox, who's a junior. She's first team All-American. She's 6'4", and can do it all. And she tore ACL in the third quarter. And when she went out, Baylor was up 9 to Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame goes on a big run and takes the lead.
Yeah,
and the game went back and forth, and a little guard, Chloe Jackson, is a transfer from LSU, graduate transfer, makes the winning shot, and they hold off Notre Dame at the end. Ukanbali, who's just made big shot after big shot after big shot last year, missed a free throw that could have tied it.
Well, one of only 4 free throws they missed in that game, by the way.
18 out of 22, yep.
Which is, I thought the stat line for that game was fascinating, too, because talking about how Baylor scores, I mean, they scored 82 points. They shot 53%, I think, from the field overall. 2 of 7 from 3 and 2 of 7 at the foul line.
Right.
Meanwhile, Notre Dame shoots 38%, I think it is, from the field, but they hit 18 of 22 free throws.
When I said no threes, they had no threes at half.
Yeah.
They made 2 in a second, but not a lot of threes.
Well, I mean, they took 7. So, I mean, that's an old school three-point shooting numbers right there.
Now watch Oregon play, and Oregon shoots about 35.
Yeah.
I mean, they are incredible three-point shooters. You can win multiple ways. Baylor won old school, and their coach, Kim Mulkey, who was a heck of a guard for Louisiana Tech, she used last night, and she used her forum on press conference of the night as a recruiting tool. She said, she was telling post players, she said, come to Baylor. Said, we're not going to use you as screeners. We're going to put you on a block and throw it to you. And of course, she had the Brittany Griner played for her, and now this girl. So she's got a lot of old school in her where she goes inside out. And she makes a good point, because right now in the men and women's game, especially the men's game, if you're a big kid, you are a perimeter screener.
Yeah.
And then go get the rebound.
Yeah.
And, she made a pretty good point.
There was something else at the women's national tournament that I thought was pretty interesting, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. Muffet McGraw was asked about women coaches and this kind of thing, and the role model that women serve for other women. And I get her point. But my thought about this is, I think it is true that people have to have the idea that they are capable of achieving something. And a lot of times they recognize somebody they can identify with, and that's how they decide they're capable of achieving something. So I thought Muffet McGraw's point there was well made and well intended, but also sometimes think that what happens is that means that people take it that, well, no one else can actually serve as a role model for somebody.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's accurate.
I don't either. I had a problem with it, to be honest with you. I mean, I understand what she was saying, and she went on to say she would never hire a male as an assistant.
Yeah, which I think is not good.
Well, I think once you start going never, I think you run into some trouble, to be honest with you. Yeah. And she's a heck of a coach, and I love how her team plays. Maybe the answer is maybe there's not enough women coaches in the men's game.
Yes,
maybe
which I think she also pointed out.
Maybe that's part of it now. Now, I think the point guard of Oregon said it right in Sabrina, who's coached by a guy. Mm-hmm. And I think Sabrina said she respects her comments, but she said, I want the best coach that I can get. Yeah. And she said, I could care less if it's male or female. Yeah. And I think there's some truth to that, to be honest with you. Are there, sometimes in the women's game, I know at the high school level, we would truly like to have more Piper Lindsays. Oh, yeah. That's the perfect situation. But I don't think people realize they're hard to find, to be honest with you. There's more men.
You can't just make them up.
No, more men gravitate to the coaching positions than women. That's just a fact. And and I'm sure it's that way at the college level too. And I think most of the female players that I know and whatever, they want to be coached. Yeah. And they want a good role model regardless if it's male or female. Well, and I think that's kind of what it comes down to. So when she said I would never have a male, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, you coached girls basketball
in both, of course, both girls and guys, but yeah girls primarily.
20 years, yes, mostly for girls. Right. I mean, and how many of your former players are now coaches?
Well, got several. I mean, T.J. Thomas, Courtney Thomas. Piper, yeah, those are three that just jump out at me right now.
And I think you've had some more that have gotten into it, maybe have gotten out of it.
Tina Muse was my assistant for years. Yeah, that's correct. And some have gotten in and gotten out. You're right.
So I mean, I think they didn't look at you and say, well, the only chance I have is to go do something else. I'll never get a chance to be a coach. I think. Point is that you instilled in them as their coach. They had a desire and a passion, and you didn't tell them they couldn't do it, and nobody else did.
I think role models come in all shapes, in all colors, and in all genders. Yeah, and I understand her point. I do. I sometimes I think that there should be more women, at least faces in the men's game. Like the Becky Hammond, not Becky Hammond. It's Becky Hammond, the assistant coach for San Antonio Spurs. Right. I think there should be probably more that way, more females that are refereeing maybe in the men's game, things of that nature. More diversified that way. Anytime you start saying no, never, I think that kind of. I don't like that message either.
That's to me, that's an equally bad message.
That is, and the coach of Baylor, I've gone blank. Mulkey has had two men assistants for years, one for 19 years and one for 15 years, and she kind of echoed the same thing. She said she's all for providing opportunities for women and things like that, but she said, I've got two male assistants and I wouldn't trade them for anybody.
Yeah, I do think Muffet McGraw's point is accurate in that people do have to see somebody that they can relate to.
I think so,
and believe that provides them an opportunity. They can be that person. Right. If I want to be an astronaut, they see somebody and they're like, oh, that person's an astronaut. That means that's an opportunity for me. You have to be able to see this, but you can't close the door on the diversity in the reverse situation.
That's correct. Qualified people.
Yeah, you have to hire the best possible people is what it comes down to, no matter what they look like, what their gender or race or whatever. That's what you're aiming for, is to build your team with the most qualified and best people.
That's correct, and I agree with that. And that was the one thing that I wouldn't say I took offense to it. I disagreed with.
Yeah. Well, this Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
All right, we're back. We're going to talk a little bit about the local baseball, softball scene, and most of it was in Florida. Well, actually, I guess only Glasgow baseball was in Florida. Barron County softball played at Murray over the weekend, and Barron County Baseball played over at the Warren County Invitational. So those games were played at Warren East High School and I think Basil Griffin Park. And they got in 3 games. The Trojans did. The Trojanettes got in a wave of games, and they played a bunch of them and did pretty well. And then Glasgow Baseball wrapped up their run down at the Fort Walton Beach Bash last week. Didn't play any over the weekend. And Glasgow Softball was supposed to they took last week off. They were supposed to return today, but I think all the games basically got rained out for today. And so now on the schedule, of course, we have a couple of district games tomorrow. I think, let's see, Glasgow's baseball plays at Allen County tomorrow. And then Barron County, I think, don't they have a game tomorrow? Real quick. They were supposed to play Metcalf today, but that got
Monroe
moved.
tomorrow.
Yeah, and then they host Monroe tomorrow. So we got a couple of 15th district baseball games on the slate for tomorrow. But real quick, let's kind of recap. Let's go with the baseball. Let's recap the baseball. Barron County over the week, well, it started Thursday. They lost to Caldwell County 10-7. They beat Anderson County 11-0 in 5 innings, and then lost to Trigg County 13-8.
Yeah. By the way, Jamison Bowie pitched a no-hitter against Anderson County.
Yeah. So they've had to go deep with the injuries to their pitchers, and they found Jamison Bowie, who had a good outing.
Yeah, they still have not had Gillen is still not back, and neither has McCain Coulter. That's 2 of their top 3 pitchers, and it's been probably a surprising year for Barron. I mean, it's not they have struggled. I think Barron's 3-8. But it's kind of been opposite they thought. We heard Coach Crabtree when he came in here. He was concerned about the hitting.
Yeah.
Well, they've actually hit it pretty well.
Right.
But what has plagued them a little bit is lack of pitching depth. Justin Combs has pitched well. Mm-hmm. Some of the games he started, there was no decisions. He left after the 5 or 6 innings and so forth. But the problem has been more defensively made probably too many errors for this time of year and just not consistent pitching. And there's very few high school teams that have enough depth to replace 2 of your top 3 pitchers, and that's kind of what we're going through. The good news is those kids that look like has a shot to be back in the next couple weeks or so. Yeah,
well, good. And after spring break really is when I think the season gets started. I know these days they may play a district game before spring break, but I think the rule still basically applies that the season really starting this week in terms of what you're looking for, getting ready for the district tournament, coming up in a month or so, and that's what they're aiming at. Meanwhile, Glasgow, they had already played a couple of games by the time we were on the air last week down at Fort Walton Beach, and then they played a couple of more. Tuesday they beat Hopkins County Central 8-3. And then Thursday they beat McLean County 3-1. So
they went 2-2 on their trip.
Yeah, and their 2 losses I would say are against what I would call quality opponents. I mean, they had lost to DuPont Manual 8-7 last week and Lexington Christian 5-1. So they were having a real hard time with errors and that kind of stuff before they went to Florida. Maybe they got that cleaned up a little bit while they were down there.
Yeah, it seems like they've pitched it better of late too. The first 3 or 4 games they're giving up a lot of runs, and it seems like their pitching has stabilized and. They are 5. I think they're 5-5 right now, and with a schedule that's pretty impressive, to be honest with you. Central Hardin is good, Logan County's good.
Yeah,
they played Manual and Lexington Christian, and they've not played your locals. I can tell you what, they've gone out and played different teams, and I think 5-5 is considering their schedule. That's and their start to the year, in which the first couple games they gave up.
Looked terrible. Really.
Yeah, so I think Coach Royce is probably right now pretty pleased to be 5-5 after the start.
Yeah, and like I said, they'll end up playing the game against Allen County tomorrow. I don't know. When the season started, I don't know. We kind of talked about this, and some folks thought that maybe Glasgow was the best team, and some maybe Allen was the best team, some Barron. I think everybody thought Monroe was going to have a drop-off this year, but they all finished 3-3 at the end of last season.
Right.
So, it was a dead heat last year.
I don't think the first 3 weeks has settled anything.
No.
Allen's 3-8?
Yeah.
Glasgow's 5-5. Monroe's right around. I don't have Monroe's record, but they're not much better than that, I don't think.
Yeah, no, that's all. They're all kind of bumping around in the we still don't know much about you category, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monroe is 5-3 at the moment.
Okay, I don't think their schedule has been.
No, not really. They've already played a district game against Allen, which they lost 10-5. So And then they played in the 4th Region Tournament games, and they played in the Fred Capps Tournament.
That's over in Cumberland County.
Yeah, and they won 2 games over there, beat Clinton 10-3 and Cumberland 10-7. So that's how they've gotten to 5-3. I would say that their schedule is not as tough as Glasgow's.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, so I mean, just looking at the baseball, we may still look at a year. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if all 4 of these teams wind up more or less just like they did last year. I would still say Monroe might be slightly off from Allen, Glasgow, and Barron.
Well, and Barron's, hope is they get their pitching healthy.
Yeah,
they get their pitching healthy, they'll be fine.
Yeah, I've got to believe that Coach Crabtree really believes that he gets them on the mound, they're going to be a lot better team.
Sure.
Meanwhile, over in the softball, as we were talking about, the Barron County, I mean, they just played a bunch of games over there at
13-2. That's 15 games this early year. Yep.
That's a bunch. I mean, they played 5 in 3 days or 2 days basically. They beat Murray 16-1, beat Fort Campbell 18-0, beat Livingston Central 11-0.
Breckenridge 16-1.
Yeah, beat Breckenridge 16-1, and then lost to Russellville 3-1.
That's a head scratcher.
Yeah, it is.
I haven't talked to
Coach Murphy about
that one because Russellville is their record is good, just like their record in basketball was good.
Yeah,
but
they're traditionally not strong at softball.
No, not at all. So a little head scratcher. But you're talking about a team that can flat score. I mean, Barron's kids can flat hit it, and they are predominantly young too.
Yeah.
But they have really, really hit the ball, and their freshman pitchers pitched better than I think Coach Murphy expected this time of year.
Yeah,
I think Barron is much better. I think they're arguably top 3 teams in the region. Now, listen, there's a huge gap. Warren East is 14-0.
I think they're number 2 in the state right now.
Number 2 in the state, and defending state runner-up, and everybody's playing catch-up to them.
Yeah.
So I think you can argue that Barron is right up there with South Warren and Greenwood, Barron. Those are probably looking like the top teams in the region.
Real quick on this Russellville thing, they actually have won some quality games besides the game against Barron. I mean, they beat Muhlenberg County 7-3. They split with Bowling Green. They beat them once. What was that score? They beat them 8-0 and then lost to them 5-2. I mean, they may be legitimately a mid-level team in the region this year.
Well, it's rare.
Yeah,
but it could be. You're one pitcher away from being really competitive.
Yeah, so I mean, they look like a decently competitive squad this year. And like I said, Glasgow didn't play any games last week. They postponed everything. I guess they just took the week off. I mean, actually, we didn't really talk to Stephen Murphy much about what their spring break plans were when he was in here. We just knew that they were not going to Florida this year. And so they will have a district game tomorrow as well. As soon as I can find this is good radio.
We play Allen.
That's right. They play Allen tomorrow,
and they play Barron. No, they play Barron tomorrow,
and then Allen Thursday.
That's right. They play at Barron and then at Allen on Tuesday and Thursday, weather permitting.
Yeah, which I think Tuesday is supposed to be decent. Maybe the weather comes back in Thursday. I'm not sure, but meanwhile, they kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start, but they are 3-5 now. They managed to. They lost a game to Monroe before.
They've not had a lot of close games.
No, they've either won big or lost. I mean, the closest game is really the game with Monroe, which was 9-6. They lost that game 9-6.
They lost to Franklin 10-0 and defeated Somerset 20-9.
Yeah.
Lost to Grayson 14-1. Taylor 10-1. Beat Hart 17-6.
Yeah.
It's
all or nothing for them.
It's all or nothing. That's exactly right.
Well, and so, but this will be a good test for them this week. And
against Barron, yeah,
and
Allen. But Allen is for an Allen. I don't remember a losing record from Allen. They're 3-9, and they've been outscored 105-44.
Yeah, they've not looked good in that run either. I mean, they've given up a lot of runs.
That is, in my lifetime of coaching, I've never seen that at Allen.
Yeah, the next thing you know, Rick Roberts will be making his 3rd turn over there if it keeps going like this.
Well, that is, if you don't recruit, you go through these periods in whatever sport. It's hard to just stay dominant year in, year out at a county school like Allen. And right now they've been kind of slowly not at the state title level like they were 7-8 years ago.
Right.
It's been a slow decline, but it's it happens.
I mean, we were talking about this last week. I mean, Greenwood has made a comeback. I mean, they had hit a slump. But they had hit a slump. I mean,
Yep.
there was a point in time in the 4th region where you just knew it was Greenwood and Allen County. One of them was going to win it, and that's just all there was to it.
It's like basketball, Warren Central or Bowling Green and boys basketball.
Yeah. So I mean, we're in a period of we're in a period of time where that's not locked in. Other people have an opportunity, and
Right now,
Warren East looks like the monster, but that'll come to an end as well at some point in time.
It will. And one thing about it, everybody in every sport brags about their region. The 4th region at the top end has been extremely good statewide for years.
Oh yeah,
Allen's been a state titleist, Greenwood state titleist, Warren East last year state runner-up, and they'll be one of the favorites this year.
Yeah. So I mean, the 4th region softball has been really
at the
good.
top end.
At the top end,
there's a lot of bad teams year in year out too. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
But the top end has been very good.
Yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. You don't want to go anywhere because when we come back, I'm going to give John Butler an NBA quiz. He's not a fan of the NBA.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, maybe I pigeonholed you a little too much. Maybe you're just not the biggest fan of the NBA.
Not the biggest, but I like the NBA. I don't like all the complaining that goes on.
Oh yeah, I don't like. See, a lot of people like the sideshow of the
NBA.
I don't. I like the
it's
sport.
Like watching Desperate Housewives. It's all they do. It's never about the game anymore.
So you're not a follower of NBA Twitter then either, right?
Heck no, absolutely not.
See, these people talk about cutting the cord and all this kind of stuff and not watching soap operas. That's because they're doing it on Twitter these days.
That's right.
They're not watching on TV.
That's pro sports has gotten it that way.
Yeah. All right. So here I got a little quiz for you.
All
right. Can you name the team in the NBA with the best record this year?
Yes, Milwaukee.
Yep. Are you surprised by that?
Surprised that I know it? No, I know Milwaukee. I was surprised before the year that they were the best. Yeah, but I think they got the best player in the league.
Yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo, if I even got close to that.
Yes, I think he's the best overall player.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Does it all, and he's humble.
Yeah.
Sometimes...
You know what I like about him?
He's not born in America. Sometimes those guys are a little bit more humble, I think, at times.
Yeah, he's Australian by birth, I believe it is. Or
Greek.
He's by birth.
He's Greek.
But what I really like about him is, he is a throwback to a guy who plays because he loves the game.
He does.
I mean, it's the Michael Jordan rule. I mean, they tried to tell Michael Jordan you can't play in the summertime, and he's like, no, I came to play basketball.
I like him. He's my favorite player now.
Which I think is why a lot of people if you talk about people why they say Michael Jordan's the greatest, it's because they respect his love for the game. They may not like anything else.
I do like Milwaukee. They play hard. Those guys play hard.
Yeah.
That coach is really good. He won with Atlanta. Nobody won with Atlanta.
Yeah, that's right.
And he came in and they shoot the most.
Is it Budenholzer?
Yes, they shoot the most threes of anybody in the league, which opens the game up for
Giannis, and he just destroys a rim.
That's correct.
Okay, so the top scorer in the NBA, who's this?
James Harden.
Yep. He's at 36.1. The next closest, I think, is 11 points behind him.
Wow.
The only player in the top 5 in scoring and rebounds in the NBA.
Scoring and rebounds.
Yep.
Is it the guy from Philadelphia?
Yeah, Joel Embiid, and he'll tell you about it too.
That's right.
He's not humble.
No, he's not humble. But I kind of like his game though.
I do too. I like the way I like his game.
The difference, he's not humble, but he's got at least a sense of humor. Unlike Kevin Durant.
He doesn't take himself too seriously.
LeBron is what I call him.
Yeah.
His brand. But at least Joel has got a little bit of a sense of humor. I like him in that sense.
Yeah. Top rebounder in the NBA.
I think it's the guy for Detroit.
Yep, Andre Drummond.
See, I know this.
Yeah, you're doing better than I expected. 15.5.
Better hadn't missed one. Tough grader.
You might get 100 before this is over with.
Okay, all right.
I got a tricky one for you at the end. Though.
All
right. Top assist leader in the NBA.
Top assist leader.
This one might throw you off. Actually,
it could. Is it? Is it West? Is it West?
It is Russell Westbrook.
Westbrook.
Another one that is he gets 10.7. Next closest is 3 assists less a game.
Yeah, probably Ricky Rubio.
Yeah, and then all right. This is one I think you won't get.
Oh,
blocks per game lead the league.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Going kind of deep.
Guy from Utah.
Is that Miles Turner? I forgot to write that.
No. That's not Miles Turner plays, I think, for Indiana.
He does.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I was like, if he might be from Utah, I don't know.
No, it's a guy from Utah.
Yeah, I didn't know that one.
The French guy from Utah.
Oh, yeah. All right, number 2 in the NBA in blocks per game. Can you name this one?
I didn't get the number 1 guy. Is it Rudy Gorbat or whatever?
Yeah.
Is he number 2 or is it Joel Embiid?
Actually, it's Mitchell Robinson.
For the Western guy.
Yeah.
They didn't play at Western.
Knicks.
He's number 2.
Yes, 2.5 a game. He's played in, I don't know how many games.
I guess he qualified.
63 games.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
he's played in 63 games.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, you know what was kind of fascinating about this particular thing with when I was looking at this Mitchell Robinson is I looked it up online and it no longer says which college they attended. It says previous. And so next to previous, it says Western Kentucky University. You know, used to it'd say they played at whatever high school.
Yeah, because they go to so many.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm like, why did they even put previous on there? Previous should have said somewhere in Utah where he's working out.
Should Western even get credit?
No, I mean, he
was on there 2 weeks.
Yeah, twice, twice for 2 weeks.
I mean, it's good for Western. I guess they get some recognition. But what did they do?
That's gonna be a trivia question someday when Mitchell Robinson is leading the league in blocks. They're gonna go, where did he go to college? They're not gonna say where did he play.
I mean, that's like getting credit for just visiting a college.
Well, yeah, it's more or less what he did. I mean, it's like all these people who posted on, I got offers from such and such school and never heard from them.
That's like putting down Harvard just because you went on
campus.
By
it one day.
Good gracious!
I've been to Boston. I know where Cambridge is. It's like, okay. Oh, yeah. So you know what? The season is almost over.
Thank goodness. 82 games. The playoffs start this week, Saturday.
Yeah, and I would actually say that I'm looking forward to the playoffs. The season has not really interested me at all.
No, it's all drama.
Yeah, but I'm interested in the playoffs because we do have teams like the Bucks and the Denver Nuggets and folks like that who I don't think anybody would have registered. I mean, definitely not the Denver Nuggets before the season started. I mean, they got the number 2 record.
I used to be for Golden State, and I'm off the Golden State train.
Is it just Kevin Durant? He just wears you out?
He wears me out, and to be honest with you, Green does too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all they do is complain and fight and argue and things like that, and it's after a while, come on, and go somewhere else, do something else. It gets. Listen, I like how they play, and who doesn't like Steph Curry?
Yeah,
but after a while, it's just the constant bickering and just the complaints. I think it's a bad example.
Yeah,
I mean, all they do is argue with officials and complain. After a while, it gets old.
Well, it's also why I'm not a fan of James Harden. I mean, I think he's a fascinating player.
I just don't like how they play. I mean, it's stand around with the ball, and he's a heck of an offensive player. But he shoots 30 free throws a game.
Yeah,
and after it's hard for me to watch that type of basketball.
Did you see the other day they were showing this report, and I think it was the Utah Jazz. They were defending James Harden. They just stood on his left hand. They gave him a right hand drive lane. They just would not let him shoot that step back 3 from his left hand. I mean, like the defender literally stood on the left side of James Harden the whole game.
He still jumped into him half the time.
Yeah, he tried, and it didn't work out very well. The refs didn't give him those calls.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I mean, he was clearly frustrated. But I'm with you. I think he's an amazing offensive player.
He is.
But I can't stand to watch the Rockets, which is why I'm actually rooting for somebody like Milwaukee or the Toronto Raptors because I still like Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he's not with the Spurs, but I like him.
And I like Boston.
Yeah,
just for Boston. I mean,
I'm done with Kyrie Irving.
I'm done with. He's another one I'm done with. Yeah, I mean, after a while, when you're unhappy everywhere you are, there comes a time where it's probably you.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
When you're never happy with any coach, you're never happy where you are, and it's on you after a while. And they took a perfectly good team that could play together. And there was no drama with that team last year. Now all of a sudden there's drama, and the only thing that I don't think it's Hayward. I don't think he's the drama king.
No, and it's not Jason Tatum. It's not all those other dudes who were there.
It's not Gordon Hayward. I think there's one guy.
Yeah, and I know this isn't possible in the NBA really, but I mean at some point in time, Brad Stevens just wants to look at Kyrie Irving and say, "Get over yourself."
Yes. Yeah.
And play basketball.
But when he's making $25 million and Brad Stevens making $5 million.
Yeah. And then now everybody's like, well, maybe Brad Stevens isn't as good a coach as we thought he was. And it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he took a bunch of bums by NBA standards last year.
I will say that Kyrie's harder to coach. He doesn't fit into the passing game, the stuff that Brad Stevens runs. And I don't think it's a good fit.
Well,
because I don't think Kyrie Irving is willing to be coached as much as some of the others.
Yeah. I mean, they're flat as far as he's concerned. Well, it's the Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week at 4 o'clock.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
This is WCDS Glasgow, ESPN Radio 1230, your total sports leader.